Okay, I guess no.
Now it's starting, so now I can get it, I guess, to start.
Uh,
Stop.
We could do a
I
quick
clicked.
video on the doubt, and then go to the other stuff.
Oh, right. Well, maybe Parker can use it then. We can do a short one. Um, so, yes, you're talking about the particular doubt that is can be phrased as things are too good to be true now,
Yes.
which is something that underlying that is actually pointing out the fact that we have gotten used to so much dukkha so much of the time that
Yeah.
when now we go back and reflect and we can say, hey, things have been, not only are they nice right now, but they've been nice for quite a while now.
Sure, sure, totally. Yeah, the quite a while is something that I haven't really pondered that much, but you're totally right. It's always been okay. It's taken me a while
Yeah.
to figure that out.
hmm So now that you're figuring that out, there's still that lingering doubt about, well, what happens when something goes wrong? And that feeling and thought come up. Guess what? That's a doubt, and doubt's one of the hindrances.
Yep.
That's just another hindrance that comes up.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. Yeah, it's not that bad anymore. I mean, you're rewiring the brain is what you're doing, right? So as you
Mm-hmm.
keep having the wholesome thoughts, the positive thoughts, you keep throwing out the doubt, it gets better and better. But, it does still come up sometimes.
Right. And so this is now part of the new skill level is to recognize that even those kind of thoughts prevent us from actually enjoying how really good it is because we're doubting that it can't be this good.
Right, right.
So that's just yet another hindrance. But
Yeah,
now
it's
it's at a
very
much
surreal.
more
Yep.
subtle level, much more subtle. But it's there as a hindrance, and so that means we have to have that kind of subtlety of mind for investigation to investigate that and says, oh yeah, right, that's just another doubt. I've seen that before. Been there, done that. Never mind. What were we doing? Oh, that's right. I was having a ball.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
But
Yeah, it's
so
amazing.
the layers of doubt will come off like that. In the beginning, remember how heavy the doubt was in the sense of, oh no, who in the world can I get to fix this broken system?
Right,
Maybe I can get a politician or a Jesus or maybe a daddy or a rabbi. I need help. You know,
right.
that's a level of doubt that's really painful, and that's where we all start off.
Totally.
And so then the doubt starts to eradicate itself in the sense of you get the idea that I can do this.
Right,
But now you're at that level of, dang, I'm doing this. Can I keep going? And the answer
right.
is, sure you can.
Yeah, of course. It's first of all, you can do it in this moment, right now. Forget the whole future, thoughts of the future, thoughts of the past. But the second is if you can do it right now, you can keep doing it right now, then it's going to work out in the future. And it's going to be
hmm
even better because you build that karma, you build that momentum, and then it just gets better and better.
Right. You can call it a momentum if you like. I would call it a skill, but both of them are correct in a way.
Sure.
Yeah, that once we get things going, it tends to go in that direction.
Right. And it's funny because then I'll get like a text I don't like or something like that from someone. But it's like the responding with the Dhamma is the only obvious thing to do, and it's like why would I not want to respond with the Dhamma? Why would I not want to do that? Like it doesn't make any sense. And so I respond with the Dhamma and then it's fine, you know,
hmm
and and so I'll think like, oh, what if I don't do that? And it's like, well, it's obvious not to do that. It's like, why would I hit my head against the wall when I really don't need to do that? There's no reason. And it's the same kind of thing.
Funny that analogy, hitting one's head against the wall. Is a student, has used that also, that phraseology of
Mm,
banging our head against the wall. Um, I don't think that any of us are taught to do that specifically, but that phrase has made it into our language.
Right.
Uh, Possibly a more accurate description would be feeling like that we are required or somehow must move an object that will not budge,
Sure.
like beating our head against the wall in the sense that the wall normally walls don't budge. Okay, and but in this context, we're talking about a mind. And minds do budge.
Right.
They can. You can move them along. But
Yeah.
sometimes it feels like that they're right now it's hit a bump or a rock or some resistance, and now it doesn't budge as easy as it used to budge. It feels like it's now become unmovable.
Sure. Totally.
And
And
that's also the way that when we have that thought of, oh no, things have gotten too good. They couldn't possibly be this good. Oh no, what's bad going to happen? Those kind of thoughts kind of get in the way and prevent us from being able to continue to move that mind along.
yeah, yeah, no, totally. Even if it's just for a little bit, like, just a moment, it still
Hmm.
does. Um, and it's
Well,
interesting
until we
too.
wake
Oh,
up to it, until we wake up
yeah,
to that thought,
totally.
it's just
And
just another hindrance.
yeah, yeah, and it's interesting too. So, in some of my close relationships, I've had the thought, which I consider unwholesome, that oh, am I just being so nice just to take care of their feelings, or am I doing it for my own, because this is what I want to do? And then the obvious, because the taking care of their feelings, that's kind of codependency, right? Which is unwholesome, you know. Um, but the obvious answer is I'm doing it because I like to do it and it feels good to do it. And so why wouldn't I want to do it? So it's good for me and it's also good for them, but it's really good for me, you know.
Well, then it's both. Then it's a win-win. This is what
Yes.
you would call a symbiotic relationship. Then that is healthy. In humans, they have symbiosis that is unhealthy in the sense that both of the people would be better off without each other. An example of that is the woman who is the wife of an alcoholic,
Right.
but
Codependent situation. Yep.
and that she is dependent upon him being an alcoholic because her dad was an alcoholic. She grew up tending with an alcoholic, and so she's made her husband into an alcoholic. That the likelihood
Right.
that he'd stop drinking if he'd leave her, but she's an enabler. So that's a symbiotic relationship that's downright dangerous.
Yes. And I've been in that before. So I know it. And so that's why I would have that doubt about that is it's
But
like,
not
oh, am
all
I
symbiotic relationships are problematic.
totally
That in fact the tender infant really needs a mommy to take care of it, and while that's happening, all the ladies in the house are gushing over that brand new baby, and so everybody's getting joy out of that.
right.
That's all.
Totally.
Okay, but that's another symbiotic relationship. And some of
Right.
them are wholesome and some of them are unwholesome selves. So, going back to the question that you had about dealing with other people, that means now that you can either be in a symbiotic relationship with them that is wholesome or unwholesome. Your choice. And if you
Right.
choose wholesome on your side, that's more than likely, but not necessarily. And in fact, you can take great delight out of hurting them.
Hmm.
This is the stance of the bully. He takes delight in harming other people because now he's got more other people feeling worse than he does.
Right.
So he wins the bad feeling contest because he doesn't have to feel as bad as they do because he's abused them into bad feelings. Okay, so that's an example of a symbiotic relationship.
That's
Now,
unwholesome.
and that's completely unwholesome. But you can actually spread joy in a wholesome way so that people gain joy from it. And that's a very wholesome situation. That's a symbiosis that is friendly, healthy, wholesome, and is, let's say, praised by the wise.
Yes, and that's where, seclusion comes in, as well as, the psychotherapy literature would say boundaries, right? The importance of boundaries and keeping up boundaries. And seclusion is kind of a boundary in a sense.
What a
And
boundary.
yeah, yeah, like the Himalayas, like we were talking about earlier,
Like the
or
Himalayas,
the
exactly. Yeah, some boundaries are really, really big deals.
yeah, yeah, and that's I think that's one of the things that's so healthy about talking with yourself and people like you is, you have that seclusion, right? So I know I can have a little pity party and it's not going to affect you, and that's great. That's healthy boundaries at work right there, you know.
One That's reminding me of something that just happened recently in a conversation, basically with Parker. Is that I was mentioning to him about in the dialogue on Guru Viking with Dan, that Dan mentioned that he had been in EMT, emergency medical, um, and that he also does what he has called, I think, crisis intervention, in the
Mhm.
sense of meditators getting themselves into a crisis in their
Right,
meditation. Okay.
which I've had a pretty bad one.
All right. Well, um, what I was talking to Parker about was that just recently I I looked at the clock and to see what the time was, and from the time that the caller called in a great big crisis, boo-hoo, oh poor me, into gales of laughter and complete relief, 7 minutes.
Wow, wow, that's great.
7 minutes out of complete disaster pity party into peals of laughter and relief.
That's
Seven
great.
minutes.
I love it. Love it.
Well, only because the student is an old student, so that he actually understands what's happening. But this is the power of, it's not the power of positive thinking, it's the power of wholesome thinking, which is different than necessarily
Right.
positive.
Yes, and I sent you some stuff about that, which I thought was very interesting. And did you read the article about Norman Vincent Peale and Donald Trump?
No, I didn't, but I have actually read Donald Trump and I have read Norman Vincent Peale 30 and 40 years ago. Well, yeah, 30 for Trump and 40 for, or 50 for Peale.
Well, what's interesting is Peale was the Trump family pastor. So Trump spent his whole youth going to Norman Vincent Peale's church, and that's what that article is about. And he married Trump in both of his first two marriages before he died, and he was a very prominent person in that church. And I think it's hilarious because it really emphasizes that difference between the positive thinking and wholesome thinking, right? Because
Hmm.
this guy, like one thing that is, maybe admirable about Trump is that he never gives up ever, and he constantly does bounces back no matter what. He withstands so much criticism. He doesn't take any of it to heart ever, which is kind of bad actually, because maybe if he did, it would help him. But nonetheless,
Well,
like, he
that's
has
the
resilience.
distinction between the
Yeah.
power versus the wholesome.
Hmm.
And that's a very good distinction that you're making, by the way, because I don't think that a lot of people, when they even hear about Buddhism and wholesome thoughts, they automatically assume that means positive thoughts.
Right.
And so maybe we should take a moment at least and to define what that means. Why is what kind of positive thought is unwholesome?
Sure.
Okay, what kind of thought is positive? Yes, but unwholesome would be the kind of positive thought that's not true. It's an affirmation, it's a lust, it's a want, it's a desire. It's
Right.
not real. Okay, a wholesome thought is going to be real first, and positive second.
Mm.
Where a positive is going to be positive first, and real or not, it's irrelevant.
And this is where the sati comes in. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why sati is so important, because sati shows you what's really going on. And so if you don't have sati and you're just thinking positively all the time, you're going to just think positive thoughts that are incorrect. And if it's incorrect, it's against the Dhamma, because the Dhamma is nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it's going to be unwholesome.
Mm-hmm. So with Norman Vincent Peale's book on the power of positive thinking, it does have some power. That in fact, the power of positive thinking, in one regard, is in fact going to create a bully.
Mm. And that
In
explains also the churches, the evangelical churches that preach this stuff. Many times the pastor's a bully, and that comes out, and he's got
funny thing
multiple wives.
about that, isn't it? Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh,
So the power of positive thinking creates bullies.
yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Which is very interesting. And it's interesting too, because I've gone through my own phases of trying that stuff out, and it's never gone well for me. It's never been a positive experience.
Yeah, but it was always somebody else's fault. You got to stay
Oh
positive
yeah.
about this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been interesting because like this has been one of my discoveries, is that actually one type of wholesome thought is actually being able to accept a negative thing and then work with that thing. So
Hmm.
for example, like my father, like one area of rupture in my relationship with him earlier on is that I would try to do the power of positive thinking all the time, but he loves negative news and negative articles. And so it would really just kind of exhaust me thinking that this is a problem. It was never a problem for me, but thinking it was, because it was interrupting my little positivity party. And then I get all this stuff about COVID and this and that, and then it's like, screw you. Like, I don't need this right now. And that was kind of my approach for a long time. And now my approach is just to talk with him about it and know
Uh-huh.
that it can't affect me. It's just is. It's just part of life. And I talk with him about it. And then I bring in some Dhamma, and then it's much more wholesome. Even
Uh-huh.
if it's a bad news story.
Well, now here's something very interesting that we could perhaps fill in the blanks with, is that he likes negative news because that proves to him that he's okay, because he's
Right.
better than that stuff. Okay, in a way, he's even more advanced as being a bully than you were even trying to become by practicing positive thinking.
Sure.
He's an advanced bully. He's got it down perfectly. That's why he likes such bad news, is because that helps him prove that he's okay. He
Sure.
doesn't even have to go around hurting other people. He just sits there just watching how bad they hurt and say, ha ha.
Right. Yeah, like he's been really fascinated with like the con artist stories of the past 10 years, like Bernie Madoff, Elizabeth Holmes, and Adam Newman, and all of these types of stories. And so he
Yeah,
sends me
Bernie
so
made
much
off
stuff
with
about
what?
it. Yeah,
That's the
a lot of
joke.
money. Yeah,
Bernie made off with what?
yeah, 65 billion and a life sentence, two life sentences in
And
prison,
in two life sentences, right?
and a couple of dead kids too, which is the worst part of that, or one of the worst parts of that. Um,
Hmm.
but
Well,
yeah,
that's a big tragedy for your dad to feel really good about.
yeah, I mean, he does seem to be genuinely concerned about it, but he keeps bringing it up again and again and again, and it would kind of wear me out, because it's like, Dad, like I'm just trying to have a good time here, and you keep bringing this up, and so I would send him in the past like stuff like, please don't send me this kind of thing anymore. Like, I'm not interested in this. Please don't send it. And now I'll just talk with him about it and then change
Uh-huh.
the subject to something else, or make the subject more of a wholesome subject, and then it becomes more interesting. Like, for example, he's been really into this Theranos story, and Are you familiar with Theranos? That whole
No.
So this woman, Elizabeth Holmes, claimed she had a blood
Oh,
test that was
yes. Yes, now I
yeah,
know. Right.
yeah.
Okay.
And so anyway, so he's been very fascinated by this. And we had a really interesting discussion the other day where I started talking with him about how beauty isn't necessarily good. You know, how beauty, because she's a beautiful woman, she had a beautiful idea, beautiful product that she said it was a beautiful product. It was actually a pile of crap, but you know, the whole thing sounded beautiful, right? And I was talking with him about how beauty is neither good nor bad. You know, beauty is something that many people use, however, in order to manipulate or abuse, like Jeffrey Epstein, right? Like he had all these beautiful women around him all the time. And part of that was for his own ego and for his own enjoyment or whatever. But part of it also was to manipulate and get
Mm-hmm.
money from very wealthy people, you know, and same with Trump, you know, like he loved showing off like his supermodel wives and his big properties and all of this. And my dad hates Trump now after COVID, you know, after being a supporter for a while. Um, and so that resonated too. And it was a really interesting discussion about how beauty and the Nazis even like the Nazi propaganda is all these beautiful people, you know, like beautiful, blonde, tall. Like I took a class in philosophy of art, and the philosophers teaching that class, we had a section on the Nazis and their use of beauty and how they used the beauty to justify what they were doing. You know, to say, look how beautiful these people are, look how beautiful the society is, when in fact it was being used to mask the worst evil possible. You know, and so I wrote an essay on that called Beauty and Evil, and I thought it was really interesting. That doesn't mean beauty's bad. You know, beauty can be very good. You know, but you know you have to watch it. You have to have a little extra sati when you're dealing with beauty.
Well, beauty is, in fact, built right into the Paticca.
Hmm.
There is a point there, and that is that when we see an object and it gives a pleasant sensation, that's the beauty. The problem with beauty is that beauty is then, let us say that we have words to describe this thing that we would call attractive,
Hmm.
or that it is enticing, or it has the quality of that we want it. It
Right.
draws us to it because we like it. So there's
Right.
also that aspect of beauty.
Yes.
Okay, so that
100%.
it has the quality of pleasure, but it also has the quality of attraction. That's why they call the girl attractive rather than beautiful.
Hmm.
That in
Or both.
fact, beautiful is nice, but attractive is even better in the sense that that's what she's really going for. How beautiful does she have to be attractive? Not very.
Right.
She doesn't have to overdo it.
Totally.
So, attractive is in fact the whole point of getting something to be desirable so that it's wanted.
Hmm.
That's actually instinctual. So, beauty, and they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, actually, beauty is in the desire.
Hmm.
After the eyes, the beauty is in the brain of the beholder, not in the eye. The
Hmm.
eye is just the eye. I mean, all the eye does is shape, colors, form, and movement. That's about the only thing that the eye can do. All of the beauty and all of that kind of stuff, that's a quality that is manufactured uh, deeper in the mind than the eye itself. This is actually what contacts us is an internal representation.
Hmm.
So two people could look at the same art object. Let's say that two people from different classes and whatnot walk into the same museum at the same time or staring at the same piece of artwork on the wall at the same time. And they get two different reactions. Why is that? Obviously, the beauty is not in that artwork that they're looking at.
Right. And
The
that's
beauty,
part of
yeah, the
yeah.
beauty is in what they brought into the room with them.
Yes, and that's part of the whole challenge that postmodern art poses to people. Is they're trying to say that, oh, this piece of this block of wood on a black canvas is beautiful. That's what they're trying to say, and it's
Hmm.
really not. But they're trying to make that assertion, and because there's so many postmodern artists trying to do that, and there's so many art critics that are backing them up on that, they're making a case, and it's a really interesting case because it
Well, they
is getting
can't
back to
just
that.
make art. Art's worthless. No, they have to make it desirable.
Yes.
And so they try at least to make it beautiful, because if they can make it beautiful, then maybe they can make it desirable. And if it's desirable, hot dog, we got a sale.
Right. Right. And so they build these movements, like Andy Warhol,
Hmm.
just the Campbell's soup can. And I
Can you
think,
believe it?
yeah,
Can you believe that? I cannot believe that. You
yeah,
know that if that piece of art had been run across in some body's basement in Manhattan or Brooklyn 100 years from now, they would have just passed through it. Oh, yeah, never mind, and given it what 1 second's notice is about all that canvas is worth
sure, sure. No, totally. And what's funny
until you
about that,
talk it
though,
up.
right, right. And he was a genius at that. Like, he was one of the best people in the world when it came to talking up his art. And so he was able to make a lot of money doing that. Doing that, but he also had a very ironic sensibility about it. I think he was a really like a mischief maker. Like he called his art gallery or his studio, he called it the factory. He said this is industrial art, all of these things, and he was very, trying to just poke in the eye of like our society in so many ways, which I think was brilliant. But he was a miserable guy, unfortunately, and that's why he killed himself. But it was brilliant, what he was doing.
Well, Um, if anything, then what you said was is that he was pointing out that the beauty that people see, he could see that it was not beautiful, and
Right.
maybe he came to a point in his life when he could see no beauty anywhere.
Yeah, I think he did. I think he did.
Okay, and so what else is left but the
The
pestle or the
abyss,
blade?
either the abyss or the great joy of life. And he unfortunately saw just the abyss.
Exactly. So because if it's all equal, then why not see everything equally beautiful?
Right. Yeah, totally. And I have to
Because
thank my dad for bringing up this topic because it's a really interesting topic for us and also for him and I. And
Mhm.
so I can take these things he brings up, like another one. I talked with Keyshawn about this the other day. We had a really nice little chat. My dad brought up, football. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 0-20 now. It's the longest undefeated. I mean, excuse me, longest defeated streak, longest losing streak in history. And I
no,
said,
they had a much longer losing streak between 500 BC and 1000 AD. They lost 1500 years in a row. They didn't even compete. They were so bad at it.
well, what's funny? So what I said to my dad when he brought this up is I said, "Oh, that's great that they have that because when they win a game, it's going to be so nice." So nice for them, It's going to be so wonderful when they finally win. And I said, I think it's better to be in that position than to be in the 16-0 like the New England Patriots were in 2007 because of all the stress that would bring, all the
What a
dukkha that would
stress it
bring.
is. You got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it. You can't let your guard down. You've got a trophy to defend. Yeah,
Right.
that's a lot of
And,
pressure.
yeah. And then one thing he said is, well, maybe the best thing is 8-8. And I said, I think either 8-8 or a little bit above that. So you still have a chance at the playoffs. And then, you still have a sense of possibility, but you don't have all that pressure. And the example I gave was the New York Giants in 2007, who beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, who are undefeated, right? But the Giants were having a great time because they were 10-6. They were the worst team statistically ever to go to the Super Bowl, and they started winning all their road games. And then they were going to the playoffs, and it was all road games. They were wild card. They were just winning them all. They were having a great time. and they came into the Super Bowl with this attitude of play, of, oh, we're having a great time right now. And the Patriots came in with this attitude of, oh shit, we better not lose the Super Bowl because we're undefeated and it would look really bad. And then who wins? The playful guys.
Mm-hmm.
The more, I wouldn't call them Dhamma guys, but the more Dhamma-esque guys, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's the a lesson that's hard to teach about. I think it was Eno. What was your friend who had called? This is the issue that he was raising. He
Oh,
was saying,
Ethan?
"Oh, Ethan, if I become happy, then I won't do anything."
Right.
No,
And that's
if you're
great.
happy, you can actually go win the game. That when you're unhappy because you're trying to defend a title or the pressure is on, you're not likely to do as well. But when you're really
Totally.
enjoying the game, then you got a chance of winning the game.
Totally. 100%. And that's how they won. This is, they were really enjoying it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
funny too, because Eli Manning's brother, Peyton Manning, is like Tom Brady. He's one of these guys that everything had to be perfect all the time, 100%. But even if you actually look at pictures of their wives, Eli Manning is the more attractive wife, and they both have the same amount of Super Bowl rings. And one guy was having more fun, and the other guy had a stick up his butt the whole time. You know?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's basically the choice that people don't even know that they have to make within the Dhamma.
Hmm.
That they don't understand they have a choice. So
Right.
this is what the real Dhamma is all about: is to recognize that we have a choice here. We can choose what we want to do, but we have to wake up over and over again, because otherwise we'll go back to the default. Whatever the old default was, that's the way that we will normally choose the next moment until we wake up enough to start changing that default.
Right, and that's the reverse square law. The
Mm,
previous moment is much more important than the ones in the past, and that's very helpful. That's something I've thought about a lot. And that
mhm,
gets back to the doubt. Which is, as the last moments were all so good, so why not this one too?
mhm, exactly. But all of those layers of doubt will come off uh,
Mhm.
if you can pick them up as just, oh, there's just another layer of doubt.
Mm.
That's just there it is again. I see that, because then it's
Sure,
easy enough to deal with.
sure.
That's the part that, going back to that conversation about crisis intervention, where you've got people who are meditating going to a Dhamma teacher who is trained in crisis intervention, and they can have hour-long pity party or more,
Right.
because they really see a crisis as a crisis rather than just a momentary absent-mindedness. The crisis is just having the thought over and over again, and if we can wake up to that thought, we can start having that thought, and now we don't have a crisis anymore. That's all there
Sure.
is to
Sure.
it.
And
Crisis
yeah,
intervention then is to stop the crisis. That's all there is to it.
right. And it's so funny because I was talking with my girlfriend about something like this today, where she brought up, she said, "You're so positive all the time." And this relates back to our earlier conversation about positivity. And she said, like, I can learn from that, like I need to be more like that. But then she made a joke. She said, like, I think you're so positive that if someone got robbed in front of you, you'd just be completely fine with it. And I said, yeah, I'd be really nice to the person that got robbed, but I'd also call the police on the robber. And kind, compassionate. The person who's robbed, help them however I can, and then call the police too, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and
And
that's
the next thing I'd do is take the money out of the wallet and put it in my shoe. Why? Because this is a tough neighborhood I'm in right now.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Robbery Victim, for proving to me that I should keep my eyes open.
Well, it made me think because I actually saw that happen one time in New York. I was in Central Park, in a nice part of Central Park. It wasn't a bad part of Central Park. There aren't really bad parts of Central Park, but there are parts that are nicer than others. And I'm going for a run, and it was several years ago, and I see this guy with a camera, and this guy comes up and just takes the camera from him. It's this nice tourist, fat, happy tourist, and he's just having his camera robbed, and he's freaking out. And I had to think, like, and I'm just on my run, like just focused on my workout, and I'm thinking, okay, I can either get involved and maybe get hurt, or I can just keep running. And I chose to keep running. But now, maybe what I would do is just watch the situation unfold, call the police, but stay at a distance so I don't get hurt myself, and then go in and see if I can help the guy that was robbed. But he was running after the robber, so I don't know if that would have worked. But the first part, staying at a distance and calling the police, that definitely could have still worked.
I haven't thought about this for many, many years, but I've got a similar story.
Oh, wow.
This one is in the Waldorf Astoria Hotel.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
In a jewelry shop in the hotel. And that I and a friend had wandered in there, just wandering around to New York. And there was a robbery scene right there in front of us, except that it was much more like shoplifting. But this guy grabbed a bunch of stuff and ran out of the store. I didn't even have to think about it. I chased him down. And I caught him about a block or so away. Within the seconds, the woman had already called the police. The police arrived. She arrived, but she was so grateful that here this poor Southern hillbilly hick would chase out somebody like that. I mean, he could have had a knife and stabbed me. All kinds of stuff that's possible.
Yeah. And that's what
So
I was
she was.
thinking. It's like, I don't know, does he have a gun? Does he have a knife? Like I don't want any of that,
Mm-hmm. So that one worked out pretty well. The store, actually, she was the owner of the store, and she was really grateful
Mhm.
that we had done that, and so she gave a nice prize,
Huh.
I
That's
guess.
great.
Hmm. So anyway, I hadn't thought about that. That was 50 years ago.
Wow.
But when you're talking about chasing down a robber in New York, yeah, I've been there, done that one too.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
we have covered the points about beauty is actually used as a tool for coercion. That's what beauty is. It works on the fact that it's supposedly attractive. That's what beauty is all about. So when they talk about beauty is in the eye of the beholder, who says that is P.T. Barnum.
Mm. Mm.
That's the P.T. Barnum phrase. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Let's make it beautiful so we can sell it to him.
The great grandfather of Donald Trump. Lineage.
Mm-hmm. So much for beauty. And yet is a big deal. It's part of Western culture, is for us to define beauty. I mean, that's what fashion is all about. Can you imagine what would happen to the clothing industry if we didn't have fashion and that people just wore the same thing because it was still wearable?
It wouldn't exist.
Don't you think that, in fact, right now on the planet Earth already have been manufactured, some of it's in landfill, but already, even without the landfill, there is enough clothing for humanity for the next 100, maybe 200 years?
I would believe it. I believe it. And it's funny too on that topic. Oh, sorry. Go on.
We don't have to grow any more cotton for a long time. We don't have to do any more polyester. We can just close those businesses down and just wear the old clothes.
Right. And I think, part of the reason we do is the advertising and the brainwashing and all of that. But there's also the seeking of novelty and the restlessness, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
people want to wear something new, regularly. And that is a big part of it. It's just that restlessness of, oh, I don't have something new. So but that gets tied into the peer pressure of everyone else wanting to also have something new, and so you also have to do that. And so part of it is you want novelty yourself, but part of it too is you're doing what everyone else is doing. So the society is pressuring you.
Right, keeping up with the Joneses or keeping up with, in general, whoever.
Right. Totally.
Keeping up. Hmm.
And it's funny, when I was talking to my dad about beauty, I sent him that song that you sent me about the ain't nothing gonna improve your life like a happy wife or ugly wife or
Oh,
something like that.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah, I
let's see if
sent
I
him
can
that.
get it. You'll be happy for the rest of your life. Don't make a pretty woman your wife.
Yeah, that was it.
It's
Yep.
my personal point of view. Don't let a pretty woman marry you.
Yeah.
Be careful where you sing that song because a lot of women don't like it. And if a husband
I'm
sings it
sure.
to in public where his wife is listening, he's going to have a black eye when he gets home.
Yeah, I don't think I would share that one with my girlfriend. Yeah.
Yeah, but share it with your dad. Right. That's it. That's it. That
Right.
that the woman is trying to be beautiful and that she will not stop once you're married. It's a habit of
Right.
being attractive.
Right. And that's
That, by the
fine.
way, if you listen to the lyrics of the song, that's actually in the lyrics of the song.
Oh wow. Cool. Yeah, listen to the whole song. And that I think that was in it. Yeah.
That's the reason why I sent the version with the lyrics so that you could see what the whole lyrics were.
Oh great. Yeah, I love with the lyrics. It's great. That's the right way to send songs.
Mhm.
Unless they have a really cool music video. Sometimes they have that too, but this one I don't think had that.
Well, these songs are actually educational. It's a nice, happy little song, but it's also educational. It's correct that if you intend on having a trophy wife, you're going to have trouble. You're going to
You might
have
not.
competition.
Yeah, you're
It
gonna have
it
that. That's for sure. Yeah.
right. Hmm.
But is it gonna be a
And
problem or not? And that's the Dhamma, is are you gonna get upset about that or are you gonna be, like it's funny with my girlfriend, like she said, you should be proud, and it's like, yeah, I should be, you know. Although pride is
that's
maybe
why
not
they
the most
call them
wholesome.
trophy wives, exactly.
Yeah.
And the idea then is that the guy doesn't think enough of himself, and so he's had to adorn himself with jewelry, trinkets, maybe arms, maybe a woman who's beautiful, just to prove to himself how okay he actually doesn't feel.
Well, it's interesting. One thing my girlfriend and I say a lot to each other is I accept you, and I say that to her all the time, because I think it's really important because it's like, I don't really care, like, if you do all this makeup and stuff, like, yeah, it's nice, but, like, whatever, like, I just accept you. If she makes a mistake, I just say, hey, I accept you, and she does the same to me, and that's great. That's really wholesome, because acceptance is a lot better than striving and all of this.
Well, one of the things that I could say about Thai women in general, not 100%, but basically Thai women in general, makeup is a toy to play with.
Mm,
To where makeup in the West is a very serious business.
right. In South America, too. Yeah. Serious stuff. Like
And
one
that,
thing she said to me that was funny. Oh, sorry, go on.
well, one of the things that I was mentioning is, or about to say, is that if you are in a particular kind of situation, the people who are most likely to be very heavily made up are little girls under the age of 10.
Hmm.
Why? Because they're made up because they're dancers and they're in makeup and all that kind of stuff, and they really, really go wild with it.
I think the most likely would be a female politician, and the second most likely a male one.
Yeah,
No, I
so
mean, if you
Kitty,
look at some of these people, Yeah, like Nancy Pelosi, like she's 80 years old. You would never guess it. You would never guess it looking at her and how she carries herself, etc. But just looking at her, just looking at a picture of her, you would never guess it. But she has so much makeup and plastic surgery that she really doesn't look that age, but she is 80 years old, you know, and that's politics.
Well, let's see if we can get this back on the Dhamma somehow or another. In the sense that it's part of the society that Nancy Pelosi would do that, as opposed to allow herself to be old and happy.
Right.
Who is she trying to keep up with? And what's the point? I
Right.
would say that it's much more out of just an old habit. She's doing that because she's always done it and she never does really look at the rationale, the reason behind it. Just like the example that I use about people putting too much salt on their food. I have seen many places, especially when I was a child in the South, that you order food in a restaurant, and when the food is served, the first thing they do is they start heavily salting it before they ever taste it.
You know what Ross Perot said about that?
What?
He said he would never do business with someone that put salt on their food before tasting it.
Well, it must be common then.
Yep.
But I imagine that Ross Perot was actually just hoodwinking because he would very much prefer to do business with people who don't listen to what he said or don't taste what he's doing. They just buy it.
Sure. I mean, he was a really shrewd guy. Like his rationale he gave for that was that people that do that will never be happy with anything. They're never going to accept anything. They're always going to try to improve everything, and you don't want to do business with someone like that because they'll just drive you crazy. And so that was his
Well,
rationale. Yeah.
I use salt as an example, and it doesn't even fit as a good example for many people, but you can use other examples and begin to see a pattern. And that is that the same thing is true with gun ownership.
Mhm. Oh, I lost you for a second. Okay, you're back. I think at least
Okay, yes.
your audio's back. Your
Yeah,
screen is
gun,
frozen. Oh, now it's good. Oh.
yeah, so gun ownership fits exactly the same. The people who were most likely to have a gun as an adult had guns or were around guns when they were children. This same thing is true with alcohol and tobacco and the kind of clothes that you wear, all kinds of stuff that we do as a child, including a lot of our own mental habits, are picked up when we were children, and then we go along with them to get along. That if it worked when we were a child, we continued to do it. So salting the food, we did it when we were a kid, and so until we learned the danger. And once we learned the danger, for instance, people don't use near as much salt nowadays as they did 50 years ago or 70 years ago. Back in the 1950s, people used salt a lot. Now that they know that it causes high blood pressure and other things, and the doctors have been telling people to not have salt. About the same thing happened about eggs. That at one time they thought eggs caused cholesterol because eggs had cholesterol. Then they found out that no, the eggs and cholesterol, the cholesterol in eggs just flush right out. The cholesterol in the body doesn't come from eggs; it comes from cholesterol manufactured by the body. But during those years, sales of eggs went way down. People stopped eating eggs because they
Sure.
saw a new danger in them. Tobacco is another one. That when people see the danger in tobacco, well, some people, for some reason, are not able to see the danger in guns.
Mm.
They see, in fact, guns as protection from danger.
Right.
rather than dangerous themselves. And yet the reality is that guns are actually dangerous. The likelihood of someone getting killed in a house that has guns is higher than the likelihood of someone who lives in a house that has no guns.
Sure. Actually, the tobacco thing, I want to briefly touch on that. So, I used to smoke cigars, and I still do every now and then on occasion. But, my dad, are you there? Hello? Okay, cool. So my dad, he's really into this Nicorette gum. He used to be a smoker, and then he started chewing the gum, and he's just been only chewing the gum for a long time. So he's been giving me this Nicorette, and I enjoy it because I feel like it brightens my sati, and it gives me more verbal dexterity. My memory is a little better, et cetera. So I enjoy it, and I also enjoy it in our conversations even because I feel it helps me bring out more that makes the conversation even better and more wholesome. So I have a weird relationship to it. So on the one hand, I feel like it's bringing wholesome into my life. On the other hand, it's nicotine, which could maybe kill me someday. So
Well,
I'm kind of
that's the whole
figuring that
point.
out.
When you
Yeah.
begin to see the dangers in it, then you'll find an escape. This is a major teaching of the Buddha. It's in many sutras. He talks about the gratification, the danger, and the escape. That we do things because we get gratification out of it. For instance, anti vaxxers, many of them get great gratification out of being an anti vaxxer.
Sure.
But now that the danger has gotten very big for some of them, they can't avoid the danger. And so they're getting the vaccines. But some people don't get the vaccine until after they get sick. And now they're in the hospital and they want the vaccine. The doctors say it's too late. You should
Right.
have had the vaccine 2 weeks before you got the virus.
Right.
Okay, and so that's another example that fits with this is that people find gratification without seeing the danger, and so they continue those bad habits. But
Right.
once we begin to see the danger in that habit, then we can change it.
Sure.
Just like you were having the thought in the beginning of this conversation, you had the thought of things can't be this good on and on, that things have got to go bad,
Right.
right? But when you recognize that that too is just another doubt, just another unwholesome thought, then it's really easy to deal with. But if we
Sure.
cannot see the danger in that, then we get worried about now what? Oh no,
Right.
I've gotten something that needs to be protected. How do I protect it? You've already lost it when you're having those thoughts.
Sure. Sure. And by the way, so it's almost 1 in the morning where I am. Could we switch to
Okay.
other topics?
Oh, okay. Well, let's go ahead and finish this conversation on the video and we'll start something else. Is that what you're wanting?
Yes.
All right. All right. So goodbye. We'll see you. End
All
of
right.
chat.
Kind of. All right. Take care. Cheers.